I thought I had seen the worst of humanity until this man confidently walked into my life and made me doubt every little thing I ever believed in. Before we continue, please don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell for updates. Young and ambitious, I was living my life the best way I knew. I vividly remember the COVID-19 pandemic had just began and it was a cold February evening. I was scrolling through my Facebook account bored and I see this message from one of the friends who I had never spoke to before. The text was simple but respectful. It just said, "Good morning, Miss C." Normally Facebook messages which I almost never read or replied to were disrespectful and direct sexual advances, so this caught my eye. So, I went ahead and innocently replied with a simple "Good evening, Mr. X," and that was how my road to hell began. We had a mutual friend who I knew quite well, which cemented my trust in him. Otherwise, I do not think that conversation would have led to anything substantial. Our Facebook conversations went on for over a month before we could exchange cell phone numbers, and by this time, we were talking all day and getting cordial with each other. Mr. X lived in New York and I lived in Maryland, so after a while he suggests coming visit. I was excited. To me, I had found a man who was willing to move across states to just come see me. We met at the end of March and that is how my story began. He was this warm, nice, and put together gentleman who looking at you could not think can harm a fly. The first few months were a bliss. He drove down to Maryland every other weekend or the weekdays I was off work. I had never been happier in my life after being single for over 4 years following another breakup when I moved from my mother country. He was to relocate to Maryland around summer or so, I thought, and get a new job here. I remember being the happiest person alive. Towards the end of July, when he resigned from his position, things began to look a little off. He could barely text back or took forever to reply. Our calls practically vanished, and I could barely reach him, and when he called back it was with all kinds of excuses. My intuition told me something was wrong. I could not understand what had happened or what was happening. I believed in us and what we had been building for the last couple of months. I tried to get him to keep talking to me, but the more I tried, the worse it hurt. I remember asking him if he wanted to break up with me because of how distant he was being lately, and of course he said no. August came, he bailed on our beach trip with my best friend with more excuses, just to find out he went somewhere else with his friends. After that, things just kept falling apart. At this point I should have figured out something was amiss, but my state of denial made me overlook all the red flags. Confused, I decided to consult with one of his friends to maybe get a clue of what was going on. The pain I felt that day is still so fresh in my heart. He had apparently moved to Maryland and was living with another woman who he had earlier alleged she is a person who he happens to know. They had just flown out of state for her birthday, and when I confronted him, he swore to me that it was all a lie, and those friends were just malicious. He would call me for hours trying to convince me how everything he was being accused of did not make sense, and remind me how he drove for over 4 hours to come see me. At some point I even doubted my own sanity. I thought I was pushing away love. I thought I was the most insecure woman on earth. But after all that had been happening between us, I knew he was lying, but I did not want to accept it. I was devastated. I felt helpless, sick, and violated. Everything I knew to be true was just an illusion. I thought I was going crazy at some point because I could not believe the man I knew had been lying to me all along. So, I got the address to that woman's house just to see for myself, and yes, I found both of his cars parked outside her place. I knocked on the door and he opened. I was so distraught to say anything. I remember feeling like my knees would crumble. I walked back to my car. I have no recollection of how I drove back home, but it almost felt like I was having a heart attack. I felt like I was losing my mind. I could not comprehend how a human being has the capacity to lie and pretend for all those months and cause someone so much pain. I guess when you are a good person and see only the best in people, you will always fall victim of liars. I was so angry at myself for being a fool. I was so angry at him for doing that to me. I have tried to make sense of everything for a month now, but nothing makes sense. I have shut down all my social media accounts. I cannot be around people because I keep breaking down in tears. I just want to be alone. I am still finding my way back to who I was back in January, if there is ever a way of getting that me back. I keep asking myself if I will be able to trust another man. How do I ever get back from this? How did I fall victim of a narcissist? I have a million endless questions which I will never get answer to, but I hope months from now I will have recovered from this blow and get my life back on track. But one lesson I have learned from all this: never ignore red flags, save yourself psychological trauma. Please don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell for updates.